staggering device, and that's probably why they cost more than a small truck to get the handheld version, and they're not legal in the United States for medical therapy. They're legal for research, and so you can have them and walk around and research all you want on your own person or others who willingly cooperate, but bear in mind you'd be straying over to the AMA's territory, and they'd probably come and sit on you, and they're very big. So you have to be careful about walking around claiming to be a skinar therapist in the U.S., but in a lot of other countries, they're very well accepted. And as I note, the cosmonauts have had them for years, and that's how they've been getting over into our shadow ops side of things. They sort of are a very highly prized presence when you're dealing with that particular part of the Soviet military bloc. And for my own personal experience, I've got to say that there's nothing so far in what I've experienced that would indicate they can't do this. Staggering devices. Now, this is not alone. One of the reasons that I got into this, I was reading into the Russian long before I got involved with and trying to upgrade my Russian language skills, long before I got involved with the Skinar device here. As I say, it just arrived today, and it's basically due to the kind efforts of some people in the Ukraine on my behalf, because they thought I might be able to lend a certain amount to the translation and the use of it elsewhere. But in any event, I've been following some Russian information that on torsion fields and some of the hyperdimensional, or some of the maths around the hyperdimensional nature of reality that were just quite fascinating. And so I started getting into it at that level and discovered that basically the same sort of technology is now trying to be applied for industrial processes. So imagine a technology, for instance, where you could create things out of metal, virtually any kind of metal, casting them at room temperature by using an energetic device that does not melt them. It merely tells them, be liquid until I tell you to not be liquid. And then you take the liquid and pour it into your mold, and then you tell it, okay, guys, go back to being solid metal again. Or, you could even do it with diamond. I mean, there's theoretically no limit to what the energetic approach to template tickling would allow you to do. And I was saying, this is why we, got into it again from the indications within the reports that we're going to get into this huge area of renaissance in the new electrics. And while we're going to have some fundamental discoveries here in the U.S. that will come out, it's primarily other parts of the planet that will be the spearhead of this. Usually, and comes down again because of the restrictions placed on actual facts within our academic education system.
It has.
Yeah. So where do you want to go from there?
Yeah. Wow. Fantastic is what it is, because it has. I mean, I'm go back to the beginning when I was talking to you about I connect dots, and so here you are with this thing. You're sitting there with as you visualize it, and you're telling me some of these things, and it's got applications over here and applications over there. Obviously, I'm not a scientist, nor am I a researcher. I'm just going off of what visually is presented to me.
Sure.
And this has some extreme potential for really life-altering events for a lot of different arenas. Scientific, health,
virtually everything.
In a sense.
Yeah.
It's just unlimited.
And you get back into its core, and you're all the way back into, again, the whole free energy, UFOs, and the woo-woo world, cold fusion and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And, speaking of cold fusion, there was a gentleman that was on my show who was bringing forth a physicist who was going to talk to us about cold fusion here, and he has yet to get back with me. He's obviously pretty busy, the guy that's doing the cold fusion thing. So I'm hoping maybe to get again somebody else on here as well to talk about that whole process. You're talking about new electrics, cold fusion, all these things. That if we have them now, that if we're knowing about them now, it's already been in existence for quite a while.
Yes, and I find that very irritating.
Yes.
I mean, I can sort of understand the guys stealing, and I can understand the powers that be wanting the power and all of that. I don't empathize with it. It's not my path, but I do understand it. But what really I think irritates me above all is just the hiding of all of the really cool knowledge. And it's really sort of self-defeating, because it would seem to me that just on an empirical level, the more brains you've got working on things, the more you're going to discover them. And the way to have done it would be have taken the crashed disk and had a real-time distribution system for what you found and let people participate. Who knows where we would be now?
Exactly, and that's just all about the whole powers to be, that is to keep the people away from their own human sovereignty.
Yeah.
Because of some warped sense of power and control.
Ownership, actually.
Yeah.
If you look at their language, and especially the Center for Council for Foreign Relations.
Oh yes.
The language is all about ownership. It's not about citizenry. It's about people being subjects, being slaves in essence.
Yeah, that gets back to the beginning of time here on Earth.
I know.
Really old story, you know it?
Yeah,
I don't know. About
apparently we needed to go through it, collective karma and all of that, but at least we're now apparently at the end of it as well. So
yes. Well,
we'll get through this next burst of social and solar system froth and see where we are on the other side.
Well, honestly, I really feel really great things for humanity because of these times we're in. I really do. The
potential is certainly there, and there's nothing in our data, in spite of the dire forecast, there's nothing there that suggests that we can't overcome it and we can't change time. We've had some small experiences where we think we've actually been able to observe a forecast switch in midstream, but of course it could have been that we were just wrong, and so we can't really align ourselves too much on that thinking, but there still are hints within our work that suggest that it is not written at that level. It's within the template, but like Bearden says, you can tickle the template and change things.
Right. And so that's the part about the human potential itself, is that we do have the potential to change.
And it's actually relatively easy, but you would have to imagine circumstances that would be required, but we could throw off the entire powers that be structure in a day if everybody just went to the bank and calmly removed their money, and when there was no more money, they didn't riot or anything, they were just a little bit insistent. And, everybody was, if we were all calm about it, which you have to understand that they love this Hegelian dialectic where, they get you stressed out and get somebody in there to oppress you, and then they offer you the freedom by also controlling the savior, the revolutionary person from that oppression, and so they're playing both sides against the middle.
Sure.
And you have to be very clear about it, that the way to approach this is to take the Gandhi approach, the refusal to play the game.
Right.
And just go about it on your own. And we could quite literally just bring the whole system down, and then if we all sat down, we could say, all right, how are we going to start this? What are we going to do? By the way, all you guys in, the secret ops and all this, you better come clean now before we get really, really irritated and start addressing the issue with a small stick.
And, it is really that simple, and it is really that easy. The problem is that you have a lot of people that really do like the way this thing works, whatever that appears to them like.
That's true, and their minds are focused on a particular set of paradigms
right.
that control them. However, they're unfortunately going to be faced with a situation that those paradigms are not supportable anymore. We're getting into the area where scarcity will rule, and it need not, but it will. And, the powers that be are going to try and pressure us into yet another round of these stupid, endless wars and stuff, and human against human. And it really is, we're at a juxtaposition where there is some hope, I think. Enough people are becoming aware that if we can spread it rapidly enough, it'll be a countervailing tide to a rather short-lived wave. And we may have to endure some really nasty period of time, but the calm and collected amongst us hopefully will be able to prevail and say, no, it's not appropriate to. I know you're frustrated, but you shouldn't get a gun and go shoot people or riot or any of that. You're just playing into their hands,
right.
giving them more power.
Right.
And the smart thing to do is to sit down and think about it for a minute and figure out a really clever way to pull the rug out from underneath them.
Right. And I got some information. It's been a couple months ago in a David Icke newsletter that talked about. He shared a story about. I don't remember where this was at, whether it was in Africa or where it was, or if it was in South Africa or South America or where it was. But there was these tribes of men, okay? There was like half a dozen tribes, and they were always running around killing each other, right?
Right.
And so here's the women folk, at home, in their space, and they actually got tired of it. I mean, so all the women from all of these warring tribes gathered together, and they just stood in a line and said, okay, when you guys are done, let us know. And that's all it took.
Right.
And they laid down their arms, and they all went their separate ways and allowed each other just to be. Hello? Simple concept.
Right, yeah, I say it's not that difficult, right. We need to practice a particular way of walking around and not falling into their traps, you know. You needn't get sucked into the emotional language of the television and all the continuous broadcasts of, oh, you know, come and look at all this money stuff on the money channels or the political stuff. You know how they slice and dice you with the various different themes, so to speak, on their channels, and the idea is to separate your mind and coordinate it into these tight little boxes so they control you.
Exactly. And what we need to do is to really let go of that paradigm, because obviously picking up arms, beating each other up, where does that get you? Nowhere. Right.
No,
back.
we've been doing it for a few thousand years, and empirically we've proved it doesn't really gain the species that much, and we have to now look at everything as part of the species. We're also sold the idea that royalty, knighthood, the title of sir, all these things in the language are theoretically good from the viewpoint of the powers that be because they are granted rights or privileges.
Right.
They're not freedom. So I would, you know, there's some of the things that in our past I would have to say we've got to be real careful about the language. I would not, for instance, rally around a flag that said give me liberty or give me death, simply because the word liberty is something that is given to you. It's not freedom. Freedom you create for yourself. And so liberty acknowledges someone else's sovereignty over you to give you that liberty to begin with. So, for instance, as a parent, you give a child a liberty and they can go out and do something. And in that sense, no, we've got to look at things entirely differently and say we're sovereign beings in a really scary universe, but hey, at our core, we're pretty tough. And we're actually really amazing, and we can do some really cool stuff. We've just got to stop being stupid and falling into the trap that these, you know, the bloodline elite mind control people want to have us believe.
Exactly.
And it's kind of nasty, and they're going to kill a whole lot of us. There's no question about it. But there's billions of us, absolutely billions. And there's really far less than a few million of these guys.
Right, and we have the power.
Yeah, and the future is out there, and once we start getting into this whole concept of getting up to a galactic way of thinking, their day is gone, and we're real close to that. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't have troubles, but at least we'll be able to look at them squarely and say, no, it's stupid to put resources into this little plastic thing in the bottom of a cereal box. We need to seriously put all that energy into, you know, building shelters that'll survive this, for instance.
Right, exactly. My dear, we are almost out of time. Actually, we are out of time. If you will let everyone know not only your website, but also George Yur's website,
go to George Yur's urbansurvival.com and look at his daily update. It's probably the most erudite piece of writing on the net on a daily basis, and he swears every Saturday he's going to give up doing those Saturday reports. And that's urbansurvival.com. My stuff is over at halfpasthuman.com. But it's very dire, and if you don't want to get into that level of nastiness, probably should stay away.
And you know what? I absolutely appreciate you always coming on here and sharing your knowledge and your time with us, with all of us here, Clif. And we will get with you to have you back on in the month of August to have another open kind of discussion here for all the points that we didn't hit, as well as, you know, just some personal, maybe some personal information that will help people as we go along through this, because we're all in this together.
Sounds like a deal.
All right, and thank you again, Clif, for the rest. You don't go away. We'll be right back with more of Journeys with Rebecca. Bye, sweetie.
Bye.